Good afternoon, guys. It is April 14th, 4:32 p.m. here on the East Coast. So, some days I wait for some sort of inspiration to strike me so I can figure out what to talk about on these vlogs, and some days I come prepared and I think about topics for the next couple of days and want to talk about something specifically. But today, while I was out running some errands, I did run into this older gentleman, and we talked a little bit about a couple things. And what I want to title this vlog is the correlation of money to success, uh, and understanding how those two go hand in hand when it comes to working for things and being paid for them. So I talked to this older gentleman, and it reminded me of something when I was younger, and it was almost like I had an epiphany. So this guy said that he had these grandkids or nephews, something of his that were blood related to him, and some other kids within the neighborhood that he would look after sometimes. So when it came to them going to school, he would give them, I think, a dollar for every A they would receive, and so on and so forth. So I think he told me every time report cards came around, it would cost him $24, but the kids would all bring home straight A's. It was about six kids or so, and I had somewhat of an epiphany there because I realized that he's teaching them a couple different values, and some people may not get the logic behind this. Some people may. I know that when I was a kid growing up, we were offered, we were given money sometimes for bringing home good grades. I think B's were like $10 and A's were like $20 or something like that. I would always get good grades, and sometimes I wouldn't even receive the money, but that wasn't what strove for me to get good grades. Yeah, I would sometimes think about looking forward to it, but not always receive the money, because maybe the money wasn't always there. But when you have such nominal values like $1 per A you get, or maybe you can increase it to five or two, whatever's comfortable for you. But I noticed that if he was able to get that outcome out of them, I just kind of connected the dots in a little in somewhat of a way that you do get paid in the workforce for the amount of effort that you put into your work. So if you put a lot of effort into your work and you do it well, sometimes you get paid more. And sometimes if you do average work, you get paid average rates, like receiving a C on a report card versus receiving an A. And I found a pretty good correlation to that. So he would give them more money if they got A's and less money if they brought home B's and C's. And sure as anything, these kids went from being, average C and B students to straight A students, just with a little bit of money motivation. Now, some people may not think that that's the best way to do it, but if you are trying a lot of different things, maybe it's another tool you can add to the toolbox to try and see if it works for you. You don't necessarily have to motivate with money, but you may be able to help them figure stuff out, study with them, make it make sense to them, and then see, just how money would motivate them as well. Because believe it or not, that's what's gonna motivate some people in the future is either making or not making money. Of course, you want to be driven more by passion and be able to get up and jumpstart your day just based off the passion of what you do on a daily basis, not necessarily the amount of money you make. But he did make a point that um, he was an older gentleman, he's always had to work hard for the things he's gotten in life. So he wanted to represent that if they worked hard and got A's, that they would be rewarded by him. Much like for him, the way he explained it in the real world, that if you work hard, you do make more money than people who um, don't work as hard, who are just average. So I found an interesting correlation there, and I know that it was done for me, and it did help my brothers at times receive more money for getting better grades, and me at times as well. And it really made me push more of an effort. So I want to caveat onto this that you have to have also the eagerness, the want to learn, the want to succeed in class to be able to make that happen. It doesn't happen just on the inspiration of money alone. There's plenty of money to be made out there within the society, and you could work your tail off, but sometimes you're just making ends meet, and that's just the reality of it. Sometimes, regardless of how hard you work, depending on what particular field you're in, your outcome may be the same. So I'm not unaware of that reality as well. But I do think that it'd be a good, an interesting model or an interesting tool to use, um, maybe along with a couple other tools to see how that effect has on your kids growing up. If it was able to have such a overwhelming effect for the kids he was working with, and for I have firsthand experience with this as well. Um, and it did give me a slight incentive to do a little bit better because I was always a AB student, so I tried to become a straight A student. It did give me a little bit of incentive to work harder, and I think that's why I have the work ethic that I have today. There's got to be some correlation to that and the money I would make at times from bringing home good grades. There's got to be some correlation to that there. And then other people who are just not motivated by money, they're motivated more by passion. That's fine as well, but you have to understand that there's is a correlation to being able to work and be happy, regardless of how you receive or gain that happiness, whether it be in working for like a nonprofit where you're not really making that much but you love what you do, versus working for a for-profit where you're making more money and you're doing something that you love to do as well. And I think there's a lot, and you'll see this in the sales world a lot, that there's, if you've ever been in like a sales corporation or you had to sell stuff or be a part of a sales or team or marketing team where you're measured on performance, and that performance dictates where you fall among your peers, and obviously the guy who sells the most makes the most. And I think instilling that kind of thing at a young age wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, because you're kind of teaching them a couple different values, and then you teach them how to respect the money that you give them, what to do with them, how to save, how to just do things that have you be successful with your money if you're good with money. And if you're bad with money, then you can teach them the things that don't work for you whenever you're moving on through life. And let's say you don't have the best credit score or you don't have much money saved. Why is that? Is it because you didn't purposely plan to save that money? All these things you can pass on down to your young ones as they're going through life. But I guess the moral of this story is that I do see a good correlation between rewarding people who make good grades and not necessarily rewarding those who make average grades, or rewarding them as average. So if you increase, let's say you make $1 per C that you bring home, that's, let's say, the average. You make 0 for a D and obviously 0 for an F. Or you can make them pay you for an F. That would be an interesting thing, but that should only come with maybe some time in that particular, trying out this plan for a particular time. If they go from A's to F's, then they have to divvy out the money that you gave them. But I think the good scale would be, especially when they're younger, $1 per C, nothing for D or F, $2 for a B, and $3 for an A. So they get 3 times as much for an A as they do for a C, but they still get some kind of reward for a C because they are passing their classes. And if they're driven by this and you get a good reaction and they do end up getting better grades all the way through high school, let's say, and you start in elementary, you can create some sort of allowance based off that. I saw so many different ways of this working for me in my life. Like, you can use it as an allowance, so they technically have to work for their allowance if you don't have them doing chores or other things of that nature. Um, and then if they do get good grades all the way through high school, they're more likely to get a scholarship, which is based off the individual effort and hard work that they put into all the way up to that point. So obviously, if they work harder in high school and get better grades in high school, they're more likely to get a college a scholarship and go to the college of their choice, and do well on standardized testing and things of that nature. So I do see a lot of good benefits that can come of that by building some sort of reward system for doing well in the educational setting. So that'll be it for this. I hope you guys pulled out a lot of good information. This one was targeted more for parents and people, or just maybe if you're a young person watching this, maybe bringing it up to your parents if you're not on some sort method like that. If you're not being rewarded, sometimes when you're not being rewarded, I notice that there's a much uh, less, lack of effort. And obviously, if you're being rewarded for things, um, then you're more likely to do better. I mean, and the guy told me that all the kids that he would take care of went from, being average C's to all having A's, all the time. And he said every report card, and I remember this, would cost him $24 every time report cards came around. And he would set aside the money and he'd hand it out, gladly. But that is, for him, it was worth every penny. And it was a good show of force, and then he taught them what to do with the money. I don't know how we got talking about the particular subject, but it was an interesting subject, and it did inspire me to do a vlog about it. So I hope you guys take away some things from this, see how you can incorporate it in your life, and incorporate it maybe into your child's life, or if you're a young person, you can incorporate it into your parents' life and see what they think about it. See if it makes sense to them. And you can show them this vlog and see what they think of it. It's just, to me, it's good. I'll probably be using it with my daughter when she starts earning grades, and see how it works out. Just add it to the repertoire of things that you can do to help, like also spend time helping them with their homework and making sure that they get to school, making sure they arrive early on time. You're there for them in every aspect of that educational experience that you can be, and then rewarding them for when they do well. That way they can continue to do well, much like in once they're set free, and they make good grades and they go to college and they graduate, they still got to get a good job, and that's an entirely different hurdle to jump. But you can make it a lot easier for them if they just start at appreciating the simple grades that they make. That's ultimately where we're measured at a young age, is how you do in school, and that kind of sets the tone for a lot of people in the individual performance that you do in school. And should you graduate high school and go to military, like myself, but I waited a couple years. I went when I was 22. You still be measured on individual performance. So, and you'll be rewarded as such, and you get promoted ahead of your peers if you're outperforming your peers. Very much like outperforming in the educational level. And you don't want to necessarily do this to a certain extent to where they don't like school. You want to make it enjoyable, fun, rewardable, and good things, and you reinforce the positive things and don't reinforce the negative ones. And I think that a lot of good would come from that. So I appreciate you guys watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. I'm still at 60 subscribers, still trying to reach 75 by the end of the month. And I will definitely see you guys on the next one, trying to push this one out before I go to work today. So enjoy it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.